Welcome to Reelverse Reviews Episode 2, a series of videos where I will be showcasing films of the past. And if all goes according to plan, you will be seeing this video on the 20th anniversary of the release of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, a film that a lot of people consider to be one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. Not even close. How can it be one of the greatest comic book movies of all time when it's not even the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time? I know I'm going to regret asking this, but what is the best Spider-Man movie in your opinion? Isn't it obvious? Spider-Man Far From Home, of course. Tom Holland is my Spider-Man. Peak cinema. I can see this is going to be another long video. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
If I could take you back for a moment to the summer of 2004, you would have been hard-pressed to find another person who was more excited about the release of this movie than I was. Now, based on how I talk about comic book movies now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, this sounds a little far-fetched. But for the younger viewers out there, you have to understand something. We didn't get superhero movies as frequently as we do now back then. They were still treated as event films. They were fairly new, and people were just kind of getting into them. Everyone, including people who never had interest in superheroes to begin with, were starting to get sucked in based on these movies. And Sam Raimi deserves a ton of credit for that. His first two Spider-Man films in particular are responsible for changing the way that audiences looked at these characters. Like Tim Burton before him or Christopher Nolan after him, Sam Raimi took a recognizable character and put his own unique spin on it. Although I would argue that even though this film looks and feels very much like a Sam Raimi film, it still stays true to the character of Spider-Man and his legacy. Here you go with your movies need a unique vision nonsense again. Isn't it much more exciting when a film fits into a larger, shared universe? And don't even get me started on your idea of how comic book movies used to feel like events. Did you forget about a little film called No Way Home that came out just a couple of years ago? Good point. And remind me again what 90% of the hype around that movie was based on? Oh, that's right. It was the return of Sam Raimi characters. Thank you for proving my point.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Anyway, so the first thing that jumped out to me about this movie on my rewatch was the iconic Danny Elfman score in the opening credits. I think it's safe to say that nobody has had a bigger impact outside of Hans Zimmer on the cinematic superhero theme song than Danny Elfman. Right off the bat, what makes Spider-Man 2 such a great sequel and such a great movie overall is quite literally how it treats the character of Peter Parker. When the movie begins, we have Peter struggling to balance his superhero and personal life. In fact, nothing seems to be going right for him in his personal life. He can't hold down a job, his grades are slipping, he can't be with the woman that he loves, and he is living with this overwhelming guilt about what happened with Uncle Ben. In a modern retelling of this story, Peter's misfortunes would most likely be played for laughs. They would be used as a way to degrade him as a person and as a hero, while deconstructing him in the most unsatisfying way possible. Sam Raimi, however, understands how to build sympathy for a character like Peter Parker. Everything that he is going through in this movie, both emotionally and physically, feels very genuine and relatable. Even when things do take a somewhat comedic turn, it doesn't feel forced, and it doesn't feel mean-spirited. This is how you tear a character down organically and then build him back up. Of course, when Sam Raimi does it, he's a genius. But when John Watts or the Russo brothers do it, it's a problem. Have you no shame? Your Sam Raimi glazing is getting nauseating at this point. Not as nauseating as your tendency to exhibit recency bias, but let's move on. Can we all agree that J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is an absolute casting stroke of genius. He's so good in the role that the MCU didn't even bother to try to replace him in their Tom Holland films. They basically just kind of stole him, randomly shoved him into the end of one of their movies, and hope nobody noticed. You can't go 5 seconds without mentioning the MCU. It's clear to me that Kevin Feige and company live rent-free in your head.
You serious?
Another interesting part of this movie is the subplot that revolves around Harry's animosity towards Spider-Man. Not only does this further stack the deck against Peter emotionally, because now he feels guilty about Norman's death as well, but it also serves as a setup for Spider-Man 3's conflict. Come to think of it, they had a couple of things contained within this movie that would have made great setups for whatever would eventually happen in Spider-Man 3. Like containing J. Jonah Jameson's astronaut son. I mean, he's right there, and still they had the Venom symbiote show up by having a random rock fall from space and land right next to Peter. Damn you, Sony, and your meddling ways. Last time I checked, the studio can do whatever they want. They own the rights. If Sam Raimi was actually a decent director, he would have took all of their demands and made it work. Hashtag overrated. You were just advocating for John Watts and the Russo brothers, and you want to talk to me about overrated? The other major relationship in this film, of course, revolves around Peter and MJ. And MJ is practically begging Peter to express himself to her. And yet his sense of duty as Spider-Man and his desire to keep her safe prevents him from doing so. So needless to say, their relationship is pretty complicated. If you ask me, Peter is showing man-baby tendencies in this film, making it all about himself and not allowing MJ to make her own decisions. Peter Parker is a misogynist. Confirmed. And then we have the villain of this story, Doc Ock, who is a tragic figure, and the role is played brilliantly by one Alfred Molina. There were more than a handful of times where I noticed that Alfred was really hamming it up with his performance and going even a little over the top with his supervillain persona. A few years ago, I heard people trying to discredit Sam Raimi Spider-Man films for this very reason. Because they have a somewhat Sam Raimi-esque camp to them that some people couldn't connect with. I personally believe that that's part of what makes these movies so great. The campiness of Sam Raimi's style fits in perfectly, to me, with the character of Spider-Man. Plus, they seem to know when to turn the camp on and off to allow certain more serious moments to resonate with the audience. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is the hospital operating table sequence. A scene that feels like it was literally ripped right out of a horror movie. And it's unapologetically Raimi when these mechanical arms start to kill everyone in the room. The way that this film builds Doc Ock as both a formidable foe and a tragic figure is a balance that a lot of modern comic book movies fail to achieve. Oh, so Sam Raimi is allowed to do sympathetic villains too? How convenient. The big selling point of this movie is Peter losing his powers and deciding not to be Spider-Man anymore. He comes to the realization that this is all happening because of the burden that he constantly carries around with him. The bigger conflict of Spider-Man 2 is coming from within. I don't care how many times you have a character save the world, if you don't help the audience to understand what that character is actually about, and if you don't give them more personal, relatable issues for them to overcome, then no one is going to be able to connect with them on a deeper level. This is the brilliance of Spider-Man 2. The emphasis is firmly placed on Peter Parker's issues and not just Spider-Man's. And Peter needs to gain a better understanding of what it means to be a hero, and the sacrifice involved with doing that if he wants to become the Spider-Man that we all know he can be. It's simple yet effective, and it's a big reason why this film will probably stand the test of time. You know what else holds up? Your hypocrisy. Are you gonna sit there and tell me that people are more interested in seeing Spider-Man not being able to get it up instead of fighting a huge multiverse battle with cameos and Easter eggs? How out of touch are you? What can I say? I'm a man with more complex tastes. What I also found interesting about Spider-Man 2 was how it portrays the media. And this is something that they carried over from the comics, so that should be noted. Not only does J. Jonah Jameson in this movie do the making fun of ridiculous names, like Otto Octavius bit, and he does it in a much more respectable way than modern films do it, but it also shows how J. Jonah and the media manipulates the truth and tries to steer the public perception of an event or a person in the direction that benefits them. J. Jonah Jameson is literally fake news before fake news was a thing. On that note, allow me to cut in. I think it feels appropriate. I don't like many things, but Sam Raimi exposing the media and all of their lies brings a smile to my face. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's people who make money off of going after other people. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to making my video where I expose another Hollywood weirdo. This film takes a turn when Peter decides to put himself out there and tell Aunt May what really happened with Uncle Ben. This leads to Aunt May eventually giving him the pep talk that he needs. And before you know it, Peter gets his swagger back, and he regains an understanding of what, with great power comes great responsibility, actually means. It still boggles my mind that the Tom Holland films almost completely ignored this very important part of Spider-Man's origin. I mean, what were they thinking? I'll have you know that in my universe, Tom Holland is the only Spider-Man. We now have 8 glorious films of Tom Holland going from Tony Stark's sidekick all the way to being replaced by Miles Morales. Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire would never. Hard to argue with that. I'd be a fool if I didn't mention the iconic train fight sequence. Maybe one of the best fight sequences in any comic book movie ever. From the fight itself all the way to an unmasked Spider-Man getting the support of New Yorkers. It really hits all the emotions, and it's a testament to Sam Raimi's abilities as a storyteller. He better be glad I wasn't on that train. I would have taken his picture and revealed his identity all over my TikTok. Reason number 1101, why social media and smartphones have ruined everything. The climax of this film features a brief confrontation between Peter and Harry after Harry discovers that Peter was Spider-Man the whole time. And this leads to Spider-Man having to once again save MJ and put an end to Doc Ock's dangerous fusion experiment. We even get Doc Ock's redemption arc completed, which to me was well done and infinitely satisfying.
Brilliant but lazy.
The movie really concludes with MJ leaving her fiancé at the altar and deciding she's not going to take no for an answer. She tells Peter to let her make her own decisions as they make their relationship official, and she finishes it all off with a go get 'em tiger as the movie fades to black. If you ask me, MJ can do so much better. She should have gotten with Harry. He might be crazy, but at least he has money. Yes, Queen! Bottom line, I feel like Spider-Man 2 holds up incredibly well. To me, it's the shining example of what a superhero movie could and should be. It's a big reason why it has yet to be surpassed, to this day, by another Spider-Man movie or another comic book movie in general. It's a roller coaster that deals with our hero's emotional journey into becoming the Spider-Man that we know and love. An A-list superhero who takes a backseat to no one, and is self-made and self-maintained in every sense of the words. Sam Raimi understood the character, he understood the material, and he created something in his image that is both respectful to what came before and timeless when it comes to an overall cinematic experience. And that's why I'm going to give Spider-Man 2 the Bill and Ted.
Excellent!
If only I could cause you the pain that you've caused me. But first, let's see what's behind the mask. I want to look you in the eyes as I cancel you. No, it can't be. Where am I? Who are you? This is going to be a lot more difficult than I thought. Where's Doc Ock? The whole city's gonna be doomed if I don't find him.
You have much bigger things to worry about now. You are going to pay for what you did to us.
I don't even know you. There are clearly much bigger things happening here than me and you.
It doesn't get any bigger than this. I'm gonna take you to my universe, and soon, everything will make sense.
Y'all be cool. Right on.